Here's Brody Brazil.
I'm certainly not one to think that this world or sports in general have ever been perfect. But with that established, I can easily identify about 5 big issues right now facing the entirety of sports. From the youth levels all the way up to the professional ranks, there are some things that I think we need to at least identify and pay attention to and hopefully do something to remedy them, because they're not going to get fixed all on their own, and they are worth this conversation. Issue number 1 is recurring injuries without prevention. And for each sport, it's kind of a different injury. With the NFL and the NHL, we're talking about head injuries, CTE, and concussions. And in different situations, right? In football, it's helmet-on-helmet contact. It's a hit. It's a tackle that's meant to happen. It's part of the game. There's no really changing entirely how the game is played, but how can we make this safer? How in hockey can we eliminate the head hit, where a shoulder or an elbow or a stick or something goes up and sometimes intentionally strikes an opposition player in the head? I'm not here to make this video to give you all of the answers. These are just identifying the 5 biggest issues in sports that need changing. And baseball is not alone. Pitcher elbow and arm injuries is a straight up epidemic. You've got a sport right now where the most popular players are only the position players. Why? Because generally speaking, they last an entire season. If you look at pitchers across baseball in the major leagues right now, how many of them will go start to finish in a season without injury? And sure, bullpen pitchers have their share of issues, don't get me wrong. There's more of them. They're throwing harder for shorter periods of times, but even starters, I mean, they're guaranteed to pitch every 5 to maybe 6 days and hopefully go 5 or 6 or maybe 7 innings in a game. But starters have all these UCL and elbow and forearm and shoulder injuries. And it's because they're being asked to pitch different than ever before. We're reaching the far edge of what the human body is capable of doing, throwing a baseball as hard as they are, with as much spin as they are. And so the issue here is not that it's happening. The issue here is that these are recurring injuries. This is happening over and over again. Hockey players, football players, the head injuries. What's the prevention? And I do realize some steps are being taken and have been taken, but we're not done with the problem yet. So until that happens, this is still a conversation. Totally separate one from a matter of human health to a financial realm. The expectation of public subsidies. In this day and age, teams are basically asking for new venues or stadium arena upgrades every 20 years. And part of it is because they see what all the other teams are doing and how nice the other team down the road has it. Their new stadium, their new project, their new renderings. And so it is kind of keeping up with the Joneses to some degree. And the old way, it used to be just like this, that stadiums and multi-purpose venues were publicly funded. But when I say multi-purpose venues, I mean, the old circular stadium across North America where the football and the baseball team played. So that public municipality really got a bang for their buck. Hey, we got 2 teams. We'll pay for one stadium. You both play there. Now, it's not going to be a great stadium. It's the same thing with modern indoor basketball and hockey arenas. Build one building. Both teams can play there. You get the bang out of your buck. And that's the way it used to be across decades in the United States. Nowadays, they want to build the stadium for one team. And the team also wants to own and develop and benefit from the dozens of acres that surround that stadium. And they want public help to do it. Pay for our infrastructure, give us tax breaks, no property tax, no income tax. We get to collect the sales tax on this property. Whatever it might be, teams are asking for all these public subsidies. And if they don't get it, they threaten relocation, either actively or passively or whatever. But it should not be the case that as many as 5 baseball teams right now are very realistic about relocation. And I won't go into the other sports, but baseball in specific right now is having an issue with the expectation of public subsidies. There's also the dilution of traditional media outlets and partners. And 15 years ago, still, this wasn't exactly a problem. The platforms and the amount of outlets, they just weren't that plentiful. Streaming was barely a thing, and there was a major conglomerate of networks, and you really had only a couple choices of where the games would be shown. This network, maybe that streaming service, and that's about it. But these days, there are dozens of networks. They all have streaming partners, so to speak. And so in 2024, it becomes even difficult for fans to find their team's game on air or online. I saw with the Yankees the other day, I think you need to subscribe to 9 different channels if you wanted to watch every Yankee game this year. 9 different channels. It's kind of amazing. It is a fine line between wide exposure, which is great, right? A little bit of your product over here, a little bit of your product over there. That benefits a sport and a brand to some degree. But there is a fine line between wide exposure and taking it too far and diluting your product. It's also difficult to subscribe to all these packages for all these games for fans. So to kind of rein it in and to get it all under one roof, I understand baseball might be thinking more along these lines. I'm also telling you that for the leagues, it's not good because they used to do better with fewer partners. Now that they've kind of expanded it and diluted it, they're having more partners, but they're not getting as much money when you add it all up. So there's no stopping this. This is the trend of media and consumption, but it's not good for the teams and their future and their existence. Okay, how about this? The regulation with inclusion of betting. Because betting is going to happen on sports, so the inclusion is there, but the regulation with the inclusion, I'm not sure if we've fully fixed that problem yet. For so many years and decades, sports leagues kept great distance away from betting. Now there's no turning back, right? They're not going to ever say, well, we've decided to, partner with fewer gaming and gambling companies. We're not going to do that anymore. No, they're only going to do it more and more. And think about the whole recent Shohei Ohtani situation and what it could have been and what it looked like and the scandal that it was at least presented as at first. Turns out Ohtani didn't seem to have hardly any involvement in it other than ignorance. But even that, it brings the question of gray area and something that's not easy to sift through in 2 ways here. Number one, how do you keep your customers betting responsibly? Your fans, the people that support you. How do you make sure that you offer this to them as something they might want to do, but you don't shove it so much in their face that for some people who have no control, they're irresponsible about it. They cost themselves a life, or drug problems, or mental problems, or family problems, or domestic problems. And then how about your players and your game, and how to make sure that wagers are not affecting outcomes of games, like happened in the NBA this year. A player was suspended for life with the accusation that he was trying to fix certain bets, certain prop bets in the game. And so the limits are going to be tested here. The leagues are going to try and get as much as they can out of this, out of betting partners. And I think individuals who really want to bet, they're going to push the limits of this too. But I don't know that we have fully understood with technology, with the opportunity out there, how much this is present. I don't know if we've fully evolved and matured on the regulation of betting as much as the inclusion has already happened. And then last but not least, speaking of money here, and a lot of it centers around money, how about the affordability of access and attending pro sports games for most fans across this continent? One game, doesn't matter if it's baseball, football, basketball, or hockey, for a family of 4, I'm asking you, and maybe put it down in the comments section below if you've made it this far. I appreciate that. What's even reasonable anymore? Family of 4, $400 when you think about everything, right? Tickets, parking, food, little merchandise, anything else you're interested in while you're there at the game. I mean, it's easy to get to $400. Even if your tickets are cheap and the costs, the associated costs or the convenience fee is low wherever you bought your tickets, it's easy to get to $400. That is very much on the low side for a family of 4. Is it okay to get up to $1,500? Is that reasonable? And if it is, then how many games are most people going to if they're spending between $400 and $1,500 per pop? What if the game isn't even that good? Or the player you came to see isn't even healthy or playing that day or night? It also translates into, when I say access and attending, access of youth sports. The cost to participate is more than you'd think. If you're not a parent, you're not around this stuff, I mean, hundreds of dollars per sporting season. And I wasn't necessarily the one paying for this in the 80s, but I know it could not have been that much. I understand inflation, but I also realize that the cost of entry and access and participation and attending sports and playing in them has all gone way up. And kids and fans in this day and age of social media, they're exposed to more sports now than ever. And SportsCenter was a great era to grow up in, of the 80s and 90s. We saw a lot of sports on television, but it's even more now. But the point is actually getting to a game and seeing it firsthand, or actually playing on a team and appreciating sports. It's harder now than ever because it's way more expensive now than ever. I get it. Sports teams and leagues, they have a business to run. They have profits to make, players to take care of and pay for. Totally get it. But at some point, where's the balance here of making sure you can grow your sport in a sustainable way, but also a reasonable way, and get more fans access and flat out attending? So those, in my opinion, are the 5 biggest issues facing sports. Let me know if I missed one or if you can think of one that's even better. I'd love to hear about that in the comments section below. Also, since you've made it here to the end of the video, I really appreciate that. Thumbs up, that'll help me down below for this video, this channel. And also, I'd love it if you subscribe to this channel. If you've never seen me or any of this before, come back next time. The easy way to do that is to go down there and hit that subscribe button so I can definitely see you next time around.